The meatloaf was still steaming when Darnell's phone buzzed against the dining room table. His daughter, Maya, 7 years old with pigtails that bounced when she talked, was mid-sentence about her science project on butterflies. His son, Caleb, barely 5, was building a fortress out of mashed potatoes. Across the table, his wife Shanice met his eyes with that look, the one that said she understood, but didn't have to like it.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
Matthews, he answered, already knowing what was coming. Dispatch. Noise complained at Riverside Shopping Plaza. Minor disturbance, probably teenagers with a Bluetooth speaker. The kind of call that could be handled with a conversation instead of citations. The kind Darnell specialized in. "I'm 5 minutes out," he said. "Off duty, but I can handle it." Shanice's fork clanked against her plate. 12 years she'd been married to a cop. 12 years of interrupted dinners, canceled anniversaries, and that particular brand of worry that lived in her chest like a second heartbeat. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Darnell stood, kissed Maya's forehead, ruffled Caleb's hair. "Daddy will be back before bedtime, promise." He kissed his wife, lingering a moment longer than usual. "Save me some meatloaf." "Always do," Shanice said softly. In the bedroom, Darnell considered changing into his uniform. 12 years on the force, former Army MP, decorated officer with commendations for community outreach, the uniform carried weight, authority, respect. But it was his day off, and this sounded like nothing. A conversation with some kids, maybe a chat with whoever called it in. Low-key approach. De-escalation through connection, not intimidation. He checked his reflection in the mirror. Jeans, navy polo shirt, clean sneakers. His badge was clipped to his belt. Credentials in his wallet, department ID around his neck on a lanyard tucked under his shirt. Civilian clothes, but fully identified. Professional, but approachable. The drive to Riverside Shopping Plaza took exactly 4 minutes. Darnell knew every street in this district, had walked beats here, knew the shop owners, knew which teenagers were good kids who just needed direction. The plaza was upscale. Boutiques with names like Essence and Artisan Collective, a wine bar with outdoor seating, a fountain where couples took engagement photos, the kind of place where property values and perception mattered more than actual problems. He pulled into the parking lot in his personal vehicle, a silver Honda Accord with a car seat in the back, and Maya's art project still on the passenger seat. No light bar, no official markings, just a man in civilian clothes arriving to handle a situation. The scene was exactly what he'd expected. Near the fountain, 4 teenagers sat on benches, a portable speaker playing hip-hop at a volume that was noticeable, but not excessive. One of them was Marcus Thompson. Darnell recognized him from the community center. A good kid with a camera always in his hand, dreams of filmmaking. The others looked like his crew from school. They weren't being destructive, weren't threatening anyone, just existing in a public space while young and black. And then he saw her. Patricia Henderson was marching across the parking lot like a general leading a charge, her designer purse swinging from her elbow, her face arranged in an expression Darnell had seen too many times before. Righteous indignation mixed with absolute certainty. She was maybe 45, 50, with the kind of haircut that cost $200 to look effortless, and jewelry that caught the evening light. She wasn't heading toward the teenagers. She was heading toward him. Darnell felt something shift in his chest, a familiar wariness that came from years of navigating the world in his skin. He learned this calculus young, how to make himself smaller, less threatening, more palatable. The military had taught him discipline. The police force had taught him protocol, but life had taught him that sometimes none of it mattered. He straightened, made sure his badge was visible on his belt, and prepared to introduce himself professionally. Routine call, simple conversation, nothing to worry about. Patricia Henderson's expression as she closed the distance told him everything he needed to know. This was not going to be simple at all. "Excuse me?" Patricia's voice carried across the parking lot, sharp and demanding. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" Darnell stopped walking, keeping his hands visible, his posture open. Training kicked in automatically. Assess, de-escalate, communicate. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm Officer Darnell Matthews with the—" "You're what?" Patricia's face twisted, disbelief morphing into contempt. She was close now, too close, invading the professional distance he'd tried to maintain. Darnell reached slowly for his badge, making his movements obvious and non-threatening. "Yes, ma'am. I'm responding to a noise complaint at this location. May I ask if you're the person who called it in?"
"Don't you dare!" Patricia's hand shot out, finger pointing at his chest, but not quite touching, smart enough to avoid assault charges, Darnell noted. "Don't you dare try that with me. I know what you're doing." "Ma'am, I'm simply identifying myself." Darnell unclipped his badge from his belt, held it out for her inspection. The gold shield caught the light, his badge number clearly visible. "Officer Darnell Matthews, badge number 2847. I have my credentials as well." "That's fake!" Patricia's voice rose, performance entering her tone now. She wasn't just talking to him anymore. She was talking to the audience she knew was gathering. "That's obviously fake. You probably bought it online or something. I want you to call the real police." Across the parking lot, Marcus Thompson's head snapped up. His hand moved to his pocket, pulled out his phone. Darnell saw the movement in his peripheral vision, felt a complicated mix of gratitude and fear. Documentation could save his life. It could also make him a target. "Ma'am, I am a real police officer." Darnell kept his voice level, professional, but firm. "I'm responding to a complaint about noise. I'd be happy to show you my department ID, my credentials. I don't want to see anything from you." Patricia was in full performance mode now, her voice carrying to the growing crowd of shoppers emerging from stores. An elderly couple stopped to stare. A young Asian woman in business casual, probably coming from the wine bar, moved closer, her expression uncertain. "I want is for you to stop lurking around this plaza, acting suspicious, pretending to be something you're not." From the doorway of a boutique clothing store, Maria Garcia watched with her hand pressed to her mouth. She had managed that store for 6 years and had dealt with Patricia Henderson's complaints more times than she could count. Always about something. The music was too loud, the customers were too loud, there were too many of those people hanging around. Maria had made the noise complaint because it was her job, because Patricia had demanded it, because keeping customers happy meant keeping her job. But this was something else entirely. "Officer, could you please—" Maria started forward, but Patricia whirled on her. "You stay out of this. This doesn't concern you." Darnell noted Maria's presence, filed it away. Potential witness, someone who could verify the situation. But right now, his focus had to stay on Patricia, on managing this situation before it spiraled further out of control. "Ma'am, I need you to step back." Darnell held up one hand, palm out, non-threatening but establishing a boundary. "You're welcome to verify my credentials by calling the station. The number is—" "I'm calling 911. Patricia's hand was already moving toward her purse. "I'm calling the real police because you're impersonating an officer, and that's a crime." "Ma'am, please don't do that." Darnell felt his pulse quicken, forced himself to breathe steadily. "This can be resolved very simply if you'll just—" "Are you threatening me?" Patricia's volume increased. "Everyone hear that? He's threatening me. He told me not to call 911. He's trying to stop me from getting help." The crowd was growing. Darnell counted 8 people now, maybe 10. Some had their phones out. Marcus was definitely recording. The young Asian woman, Jessica Wu, though Darnell didn't know her name, was watching with that particular expression of concern that could tip either direction, believing Patricia or starting to question. "I'm not threatening you." Every word measured, documented by multiple cameras now. "I'm a police officer attempting to do my job. I'm asking you to verify my credentials before making a false report." "False?
Oh, this is rich. You're calling me a liar. I know what I'm seeing. I know a criminal when I see one. There it was. The thing she'd been dancing around, finally spoken. Darnell felt the words land like physical blows, felt the familiar exhaustion of being presumed guilty, presumed criminal, presumed dangerous simply for existing. He thought of Maya and Caleb at home, thought of Shanice saving him meatloaf, thought of 12 years of service, of community programs and mentoring teenagers and de-escalating situations just like this one, except he'd been in uniform then, had been given the benefit of the doubt. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back now. Patricia's hand closed around her phone, and her expression transformed into something calculated, something cold. Darnell's blood turned to ice. He knew that look. He'd seen it in training videos, in case studies, in the haunted eyes of men who'd survived these encounters and men who hadn't. She was about to weaponize the very system he'd spent 12 years serving, and she was going to smile while she did it. Patricia Henderson's fingers moved across her phone screen with practiced precision. She never broke eye contact with him, and there was something in her smile, small, satisfied, almost gleeful, that made his stomach drop. She knew exactly what she was doing. 911, what's your emergency? Patricia's voice transformed. The sharp, demanding tone evaporated, replaced with something breathy, frightened, vulnerable. Darnell watched the performance, understood he was witnessing something calculated, something she'd perhaps done before.
Yes, I need help. I'm at Riverside Shopping Plaza and there's a man here. Her voice caught, perfect little hitch of fear. A black man claiming to be a police officer, but he's not. I can tell he's not, and he's getting aggressive with me. Ma'am, that's not true. Darnell raised his voice enough to carry to the 911 operator, kept his hands clearly visible at his sides. I'm Officer Darnell Matthews, badge 2847. I'm a legitimate officer responding to a call. Patricia turned away from him, hand cupped around her phone, voice dropping to urgent whisper that still managed to carry. He won't leave me alone. He's blocking my path. She glanced back at Darnell and she saw her calibrating, deciding how far to push this. He's making me fear for my safety. 12 years of training, 3 years in the Army as a military police officer, hundreds of calls, dozens of high-stress situations, commendations for de-escalation. None of it had prepared Darnell for the surreal horror of being on the receiving end of a false report that could get him killed. Because he knew the statistics, knew the names, knew exactly how these situations ended when responding officers arrived expecting a threat and saw a black man and had seconds to make decisions based on adrenaline and bad information. His hand moved slowly, deliberately to his pocket, every movement visible to the cameras now recording him. Marcus was still filming, so was the young Asian woman. An elderly white man had his phone out. Good. Documentation could save his life. Darnell pulled out his own phone, scrolled to Sarah Chen's contact, hit call. His partner, his friend, the person he trusted most in the department after Sergeant Wilson. Darnell? Sarah answered on the second ring. You off duty today? Sarah, I need you at Riverside Shopping Plaza now. I responded to a noise complaint in plainclothes. Civilian refused to accept my credentials and just called 911 reporting me as a threat. I need someone here who knows me before responding units arrive. There was a beat of silence. Then Sarah's voice, hard and focused. I'm 10 minutes out. Send me your exact location. Darnell, keep your hands visible, don't make any sudden movements, and get yourself on as many cameras as possible. Already doing it. I'm coming, lights and sirens, hang tight. Darnell ended the call, looked up to find Patricia watching him with narrowed eyes. Around them, the crowd had grown to maybe 15 people. Some were filming, others were talking among themselves, debating. I could hear the murmurs.
Seems pretty calm for someone dangerous. Maybe he really is a cop. She sounds genuinely scared, though. Why would he be in regular clothes? Jessica Wu was watching with an expression Darnell recognized: cognitive dissonance. She'd initially stepped closer to Patricia, positioned herself as an ally, but now she was seeing contradictions. The calm man with a badge, the hysterical woman performing fear. The disconnect was visible in her furrowed brow. Marcus had moved closer, was now near enough that Darnell could see his phone screen still recording. The young teenager's hand was shaking slightly, but his voice was steady as he narrated, "I'm recording Officer Matthews. I know him from the community center. He's a real cop. That woman is lying." "Shut up!" Patricia whirled on Marcus. "You're probably with him. Are you together? Is this some kind of setup?" "Ma'am, that young man has nothing to do with this. He's simply a witness to the situation." "Witness to you harassing me?" Patricia's volume increased again. "Everyone here is witnessing it. You're threatening me. You won't leave me alone. You're impersonating a police officer, which is a crime." "Ma'am, I'm doing none of those things." Darnell heard sirens in the distance, couldn't tell if it was Sarah or responding units. His pulse kicked up. "I've maintained a respectful distance. I've identified myself appropriately. I've offered to have you verify my credentials through official channels." Maria Garcia finally found her voice. She stepped fully out of her store, her accent thick with stress. "Excuse me, I am the manager here. I called about the noise. This man," she gestured to Darnell, "he showed me his badge when he arrived. He was very professional. He's real police." Patricia rounded on Maria with venom. "Of course you'd say that. You people always stick together." The parking lot went silent. Even the teenagers by the fountain had stopped talking, were watching with wide eyes. "Excuse me?" Maria's voice was small, hurt. "You heard me!" Patricia was too far gone now, her mask completely off. "I know what's going on here. I know what this is, and I'm not going to be intimidated." The sirens were closer now, multiple vehicles from the sound of it. Darnell positioned himself in the center of the parking lot, away from obstacles, hands at his sides, badge clearly visible on his belt. He'd learned this from training videos, from lectures from officers who'd survived wrong place, wrong time situations. Make yourself visible, make yourself small. Don't give them any reason to perceive you as a threat.
"When the officers arrive," he said clearly to Patricia and to everyone filming, "I'm going to follow their instructions completely. I'm going to move slowly. I'm going to keep my hands visible. I'm an off-duty police officer who was responding to a call in plain clothes, and this woman has filed a false report because she refused to accept my credentials." "Liar!" Patricia screamed. The first police cruiser turned into the parking lot, lights flashing but siren cutting off. Then a second vehicle. Darnell's heart hammered against his ribs. He couldn't see who was driving. Couldn't tell if Sarah had made it. The passenger door of the first cruiser opened. Officer Sarah Chen stepped out, and Darnell felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. His partner took in the scene with one sweeping glance. Darnell isolated in the center of the parking lot, hands visible. Patricia Henderson in designer clothes near her Mercedes, phone still clutched in her hand. The crowd with their cameras. Marcus still recording. The store manager standing witness. Sarah's expression went cold and professional. She knew exactly what she was seeing. "Step back from my partner," Sarah said calmly, her hand nowhere near her weapon. "Everyone stay where you are. I'm going to assess this situation." Patricia rushed towards Sarah, relief flooding her face. "Officer, thank God! This man has been harassing me, threatening me. He claims to be police, but he's obviously not—" "Ma'am," Sarah's voice cut through Patricia's words like a blade. "I said step back. I'll take your statement in a moment. Right now, I need to verify some things." Sarah walked toward Darnell, her movements deliberate, her body language broadcasting to everyone watching. "This is procedure. This is how it's done right." "Officer Matthews," she said formally, loud enough for everyone to hear, "may I see your credentials?" "Yes, ma'am." Darnell reached slowly for his wallet, pulled out his department ID, his badge still visible on his belt. Sarah examined them thoroughly, made a show of checking the badge number against the ID, of verifying the photo. Then she looked up at Darnell, and the corner of her mouth tightened almost imperceptibly. "These credentials are legitimate." She turned to address the crowd, her voice carrying. "This is Officer Darnell Matthews. He's been my partner for 5 years. He's one of the most decorated officers in our department." Patricia's face went white, then red. But he was... "I'm going to need statements from everyone who witnessed this incident." Sarah's tone was ice. "And I'm going to need someone to explain to me why a false 911 report was made about my partner." The sound of another vehicle pulling up made everyone turn. An unmarked car, but Darnell knew it immediately. Sergeant James Wilson stepped out, and his expression was thunderous. Patricia Henderson's world was about to collapse, and she still didn't see it coming. The parking lot had become a courtroom without walls, the crowd its jury. Sarah Chen's validation should have settled everything, but Patricia's 911 call had poisoned the well. People who'd arrived late, who'd only heard sirens and seen police lights, looked at Darnell with uncertainty. I don't understand," Jessica Wu said, stepping closer to Patricia. "If he's really a police officer, why isn't he in uniform?" Her voice carried genuine confusion, not malice, but Darnell felt it like a cut anyway. "Exactly," Patricia seized on the support. "Real police wear uniforms. He's obviously lying, and she's..." She gestured at Sarah. "She's covering for him!" An elderly white man with a golf shirt and expensive watch shook his head. "Son, you should have just gone to the station and sorted this out. Making a scene like this doesn't help anybody." Darnell bit back a response. How do you explain to someone who'd never feared police that compliance was its own death sentence sometimes? That sorting it out at the station meant leaving with Patricia's false narrative unchallenged, meant risking arrest, meant proving his innocence instead of being presumed innocent. Marcus was moving through the crowd now, with his phone held high. "Look at this! I recorded the whole thing from the beginning. She attacked him. He was completely professional." A young mother with a stroller leaned in to watch Marcus's screen. Her expression shifted, eyebrows rising. Oh, that's not..." She looked at Patricia with new eyes. "That's not what you said happened." "He probably paid that kid." Patricia's voice climbed higher, desperation leaking through. "They're working together." "Ma'am, I've never seen that young man before tonight." But even as he spoke, he saw some people nodding at Patricia's theory. Conspiracy was easier to believe than uncomfortable truth. Sarah was methodical, moving from witness to witness. She took Jessica Wu's statement first. "You arrived when?" "Maybe 5 minutes ago? I heard shouting." She glanced at Patricia, then at Darnell, clearly struggling with her earlier assumptions. Maria Garcia was next, her hands shaking as she held her tablet. "I have surveillance from my store camera. It shows him arriving, showing his badge immediately. She never even looked at it." Sarah examined the footage, her jaw tightening. Then she radioed Sergeant Wilson, who'd been observing from near his vehicle. "Sarge, you're going to want to see this." Wilson approached, all 25 years of experience evident in his measured stride. He was a big man, commanding, and when he stood next to Darnell, the resemblance between them, 2 black men in law enforcement, wasn't lost on anyone.
Officer Matthews. Wilson's formality was deliberate, establishing authority for witnesses. Walk me through what happened. Darnell did, his voice steady, professional. Facts only, no emotion. The report he'd written 1,000 times, except this time, he was the subject. Patricia tried to interrupt twice. Wilson silenced her with a raised hand. "Ma'am, you'll have your turn." When Darnell finished, Wilson watched Marcus's video, then Maria's surveillance footage. His expression went from focused to angry, a muscle jumping in his jaw. "Officer Chen," Wilson said, his voice carrying across the parking lot, "what's your assessment?" Sarah Chen stood straight, her response loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sir, I have multiple witnesses and video evidence showing that Officer Matthews properly identified himself and maintained professional conduct throughout this encounter.
I have evidence that the civilian filing the 911 report, Mrs. Patricia Henderson, refused to examine his credentials, made false accusations, and filed a knowingly false police report claiming he was a threat when evidence clearly shows he was not. The crowd shifted. Jessica Wu's hand went to her mouth. The elderly man looked uncomfortable. The young mother was already backing away from Patricia. "Mrs. Henderson," Wilson said, turning to face her fully, "you understand that filing a false police report is a crime?" Patricia's face cycled through emotions: disbelief, fury, calculation. "I didn't file a false report. I genuinely felt threatened. That's not illegal." Feeling threatened and claiming someone is impersonating an officer are different things, ma'am. Wilson's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Did Officer Matthews identify himself to you?" "He showed me some fake badge." "Did he show you a badge?" "Yes, but..." "Did he show you department identification?" "He claimed..." "Did he present you with credentials, yes or no?" Patricia's mouth worked silently. She was smart enough to see the trap, but too committed to back out. "Yes, but I didn't believe they were real." "On what basis?" The parking lot went silent. Everyone understood the question behind the question. Patricia's face hardened. "I know what I saw." And there it was, the truth beneath the performance. Wilson heard it. Sarah heard it. Marcus captured it on video. Even Jessica Wu heard it, her expression crumbling into shame. Sarah Chen had heard Patricia's 911 call on the radio and recognized the address immediately, Riverside Shopping Plaza, where Darnell said he was handling a noise complaint. The description the dispatcher had broadcast, threatening black male impersonating an officer, had made her blood run cold. She'd hit her lights and driven faster than policy recommended. Now, standing in the parking lot with her partner finally safe, Sarah let herself feel the anger she'd been suppressing. Not hot rage, cold, professional theory that made her every movement precise. "Mrs. Henderson," Sarah said, pulling out her notepad, "I'm going to need your full legal name and identification." "I'm the victim here," Patricia's voice cracked. "I called for help, and you're treating me like a criminal." "You made a 911 call reporting a threat. I'm here to investigate that report. If you're the victim of a crime, we'll address that. If you filed a false report, we'll address that too. Now, your identification." Patricia fumbled in her designer purse, produced a driver's license. Sarah examined it, wrote down the details, then handed it back. "Mrs. Henderson, did Officer Matthews threaten you physically?" He was aggressive." "Did he threaten you physically, yes or no?" "Not exactly, but..." "Did he attempt to touch you?" "No, but..." "Did he raise his voice?" "He was being intimidating." "By standing in a parking lot with his hands visible." This young man captured the encounter. Would you like to revise your 911 report? "I want to speak to your supervisor. Sir, this is harassment. I made a good faith call because I felt threatened." "Ma'am, I've reviewed the video evidence. I've seen the surveillance footage. I've taken statements from multiple witnesses." He paused, let the weight settle. "You didn't feel threatened. You felt entitled." Patricia's face went white, then red. "You can't talk to me like that. Do you know who my husband is? He's a corporate attorney. He'll..." "He'll what?" Sarah asked. "Sue the department for arresting someone who filed a false police report?" "You're not arresting me." Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. "I didn't do anything wrong. He's the one who..." "Mrs. Henderson." Sarah reached for her handcuffs, her movements calm and deliberate. "You're arrested for filing a false police report, obstruction of justice, and harassment. You have the right to remain silent." "No!" Patricia backed away, stumbling over her own feet. "You can't. This is insane. I'm the victim." Sarah continued reciting Miranda rights, her voice never wavering. When Patricia tried to pull away, Sarah's training took over. Smooth, professional restraint. No excessive force, no anger, just procedure. Marcus's camera captured everything. So did Jessica Wu's phone, now raised with shaking hands. The young mother's.
Even the elderly man who told Darnell to comply was recording, his face troubled. "You're making a mistake," Patricia struggled against the handcuffs. "When my husband gets here—" "Your husband is welcome to meet you at the station," Wilson said. "Officer Chen, transport her for processing. I'll follow with the witness statements."
As Sarah guided Patricia toward the patrol car, the woman's performance finally cracked. The fear in her voice became real, but not for the reasons she'd claimed on her 911 call. "This isn't fair," she whispered, and for the first time she sounded genuinely afraid. I only—" But she couldn't finish the sentence, because she knew exactly what she'd done. The handcuffs clicked around Patricia Henderson's wrists with mechanical precision. Sarah had done this hundreds of times, but this arrest felt different, significant, like a line being drawn in sand that had been shifting for too long. "You can't do this to me," Patricia shrieked, echoed off the storefronts. "I want a lawyer. I want my husband. You're all going to regret this." Sarah's hand was firm but not rough on Patricia's arm, guiding her toward the patrol car. "Ma'am, you have the right to an attorney. You have the right to make a phone call at the station. What you don't have the right to do is file false police reports." It wasn't false. Patricia tried to dig her heels in, but Sarah was stronger, more experienced. "I genuinely believed." "You genuinely believed a man with a badge, department ID, and professional credentials was a criminal. Based on what evidence?" Patricia's mouth opened, closed. "Based on what, Mrs. Henderson?" Silence. Then Patricia's face twisted with something between rage and desperation. "You people always stick together. This is discrimination. I'm going to sue all of you." Darnell watched from a safe distance, his face carefully neutral, but his hands were shaking. He pressed them against his thighs, hoping no one noticed. Marcus approached hesitantly. "Officer Matthews, I've got the whole thing recorded. Everything she said, everything you said. I can send it to you." "Thank you." Darnell's voice came out rougher than intended. He cleared his throat. "You did good, Marcus. That took courage. My cousin got shot during a traffic stop last year. He complied with everything. Still got shot. I figure, if I'm gonna be scared anyway, might as well make it count for something." Before Darnell could respond, Maria Garcia was there, tears on her cheeks. "Officer, I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner. She's complained about every minority who's ever worked here, every customer who doesn't look like her. I stayed quiet because I need this job, but I should have—" "You spoke up when it mattered. That's what counts." Across the parking lot, Jessica Wu stood frozen, watching Patricia being placed in the patrol car. She looked sick. When her eyes met Darnell's, she walked over, her steps slow and uncertain. "I'm sorry," her voice was barely audible. When I first got here, I thought—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "I believed her. I actually believed her. And I'm so ashamed." Darnell wanted to be angry, wanted to let her feel the full weight of what her assumption could have cost him. But he was too tired, too wrung out. "You changed your mind," he said finally. "When you saw the evidence, you changed your mind. A lot of people don't. That doesn't make it okay." "No, but it's a start." A Mercedes SUV screeched into the parking lot, brakes squealing. A man in an expensive suit emerged, his face tight with controlled panic. Brian Henderson assessed the scene with a lawyer's eye. His wife in handcuffs, multiple police officers, cameras everywhere. His expression went carefully blank. "Officers," he said, his voice smooth, practiced. "I'm Brian Henderson. That's my wife. What seems to be the problem?" Wilson stepped forward. "Sir, your wife has been arrested for filing a false police report, obstruction of justice, and harassment." Brian's eyes flicked to Patricia in the patrol car, then back to Wilson. Darnell watched him calculate, saw the moment he decided.
I see. He pulled out his business card. I'll cooperate fully with your investigation. Whatever you need from me. Brian! Patricia's voice was muffled by the car window, but her rage was clear. Do something! Call them! Fix this! Brian didn't move toward the car. Patricia, you need to stop talking until we can get you proper representation. What? What? You're supposed to help me. I am helping you by telling you to stop talking. Brian turned back to Wilson, his posture apologetic, deferential. Officers, my wife has a history of complaints, neighbor disputes, HOA issues. I've tried to address it, but he spread his hands. I'm very sorry you've been put in this position. Darnell felt something cold settle in his chest. He recognized this, the enabler's escape. The man who'd stood by while his wife terrorized others, who'd made excuses, who'd used his lawyer skills to smooth over her behavior, now abandoning her to save himself. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt sad. Patricia's screaming from the patrol car grew louder. You coward! You coward! After everything I've done for you. Brian! But Brian Henderson was already giving his statement to Sergeant Wilson, professionally detached, protecting his reputation and his firm. His wedding ring caught the light as he handed over his business card. In the patrol car, Patricia Henderson finally understood. The system wouldn't save her, the crowd wouldn't support her, and now even her husband had chosen himself. She was alone with the consequences of her actions, and they were just beginning. Brian Henderson stood in the parking lot of Riverside Shopping Plaza, his Italian leather shoes planted firmly on the asphalt, his expression, that of a man performing damage control. Not for his wife, for himself.
Sergeant Wilson studied him with the particular weariness of someone who'd seen this performance before. Mr. Henderson, you said your wife has a history of complaints? Yes, sir. Brian's voice was measured, professional. Primarily through our homeowners association, she's served on the board for 3 years. There have been issues with her approach to enforcement. What kind of issues? Brian glanced at the patrol car where Patricia was still screaming, her voice muffled but furious. He looked away. Complaints about minority residents, service workers. She frames everything as property values and safety concerns, but he paused, choosing words carefully. I've tried to address it privately. I should have done more. Darnell watched this confession with a complicated mix of vindication and disgust. Should have done more. That was the refrain of every enabler who'd stood by while someone they loved weaponized their privilege. The man who made excuses at dinner parties, who paid settlements quietly, who prioritized peace at home over justice anywhere else. Brian! Patricia's voice carried from the car. Stop talking to them! Get me out of here! Call Richard! Call the firm! Brian didn't turn around. Officers, I want to be clear that I don't condone my wife's behavior tonight. I'll provide any documentation you need. HOA complaints, previous incidents, whatever helps your investigation. You're throwing her under the bus, Marcus said, quietly, his phone still recording. Your own wife. Brian's jaw tightened. I'm cooperating with law enforcement. You're saving yourself. That's enough, Wilson said, but his tone suggested he agreed with the assessment. He turned back to Brian. We'll need a formal statement. You can come to the station now or tomorrow morning. I'll come now. I need to make some calls first. My firm should be informed. Informed of what? Sarah asked, emerging from the patrol car after securing Patricia. That your wife was arrested or that you're cooperating against her? Brian's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something raw underneath. Fear. Officer Chen, I have a career to protect, a reputation. My firm represents major corporations. If I'm associated with, he gestured vaguely toward the patrol car, I can't afford this scandal. But you could afford it when she was harassing your neighbors. Maria Garcia's voice carried from where she stood with other witnesses. When she made my employees cry, when she called the police on every brown person who walked through this plaza? Brian's shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. I should have stopped her years ago. Yeah, Maria said flatly. You should have. Jessica Wu stepped forward, her voice hesitant. Mr. Henderson, did you know what kind of person your wife was? Brian looked at her for a long moment. I knew. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that she was just particular, protective of our neighborhood. I made excuses because it was easier than confronting her. He rubbed his face. I was a coward. I still am. But at least now, I'm not making it worse. That's a low bar, Darnell said quietly. It's the only one I can clear. In the patrol car, Patricia Henderson had stopped screaming. She sat in silence now, her face visible through the window, pale, shocked, the reality finally penetrating. Her husband was giving a statement against her. The crowd was dispersing, their phones full of video evidence. The police weren't releasing her. No one was coming to save her. Brian pulled out his business card, handed it to Wilson. I'll need to file for separation, maybe divorce. My lawyer will be in touch. You're divorcing her? Darnell couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. Tonight? You're divorcing her tonight? I'm protecting what I can. Brian's voice was hollow. It's what I should have done before she hurt anyone else. Before she... He looked at Darnell finally. Really looked at him. I'm sorry, Officer Matthews, for whatever that's worth, which is probably not much. It wasn't, but Darnell nodded anyway, because what else was there to say? Some people only find their principles when the cost of losing them became too high. Brian walked to his Mercedes, phone already at his ear. Richard, it's Brian Henderson. We have a situation. Wilson shook his head. 25 years on this job, I've seen a lot, but watching a man abandon his wife in a parking lot to save his partnership. He trailed off. That's a new low. Sarah's expression was grim. He enabled her for years, made excuses, probably paid off previous victims to keep things quiet. Now he's worried about optics. Think he'll actually follow through? The divorce? Oh yeah. Wilson said, men like that always do. Self-preservation isn't just instinct for them, it's religion. In the patrol car, Patricia Henderson pressed her face against the window, watching her husband drive away. The last of her allies, gone. The parking lot of Riverside Shopping Plaza emptied slowly, like a theater after a performance no one knew how to process. Police vehicles remained, their lights now off, but presence still commanding. Darnell sat on a bench near the fountain, suddenly aware of how exhausted he was. Sarah sat beside him without a word. They'd been partners long enough that silence was comfortable. She handed him a bottle of water from her patrol bag. You okay? She asked after a moment. No. Darnell's hands were still shaking. But I'm alive. That's something.
That's everything. Sarah's voice was fierce. That woman could have gotten you killed if the wrong officer had responded, if someone had made the wrong split-second decision. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Marcus approached, his phone finally lowered. Officer Matthews, I'm going to send you the video. All of it. You should have it. Thank you, Marcus. Darnell managed a tired smile. You filming for your projects usually? Yeah, I'm trying to get into film school. USC's my dream. Marcus hesitated. My guidance counselor says I should have a backup plan, but don't let anyone kill your dreams, son. You've got talent and courage. That combination is rare. Darnell pulled out his own phone, exchanged contact information. You ever need a reference letter? You let me know. Marcus's eyes went wide. Serious? Dead serious. You did the right thing tonight. A lot of people wouldn't have. Maria Garcia had closed her store, was walking toward them with her tablet still clutched in her hands. Officer,
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She has been coming to this plaza for 5 years, and every time there's a problem. Every time I smile and apologize and accommodate her because I need this job. I have a daughter in college. I can't afford to... Her voice broke. Miss Garcia. Darnell stood, gestured for her to sit down. You spoke up tonight. That's what matters. But I should have spoken up before, to the HOA, to the plaza management, to someone. How many other people did she hurt because I stayed quiet? You're not responsible for her actions. Sarah's tone was firm. She's responsible. Her husband's responsible for enabling her. But you're not. Sergeant Wilson finished with the last witness statements and joined them. Matthews, good work keeping your head. That situation could have gone sideways fast. It nearly did. Darnell accepted Wilson's hand on his shoulder, the older officer's approval meaning more than he could articulate. Wilson had been his mentor, had seen him through difficult calls and departmental politics. Having him here felt like validation. Your wife know what happened? Darnell checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Shanice. She is going to lose her mind. Call her before she sees it online. This is going to spread fast. As if on cue, a local news van pulled into the parking lot. Then another. Social media had already done its work. Marcus's video was circulating, hashtags forming, the story spreading faster than any official statement could control. Officer Matthews, can you comment on what happened here tonight? Wilson stepped between them. No statements at this time. The department will issue a press release tomorrow. Officers, let's wrap this up. But Darnell could see more cars arriving, more phones out. The incident was no longer just his trauma to process. It was becoming public property, a symbol, a conversation starter, whether he wanted that or not. Jessica Wu lingered at the edge of the scene, clearly wanting to say something but uncertain. Finally, she approached. Officer Matthews, I need you to know how ashamed I am. When I first saw the situation, I believed her automatically. I didn't even question it. And that says something terrible about my own biases. I studied her. You realize that now. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. Learn? Do better? She sounded lost. Is that enough? It's a start. Darnell's voice was gentler than he felt. But Jessica, understanding your bias is step 1. The work comes after, every single day after. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'll do the work. I promise. As she walked away, Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're generous. I'm tired. But if I can't believe people can change, what's the point of any of this? Marcus's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. His eyes went wide. Oh man, Officer Matthews, the video has like 50,000 views already. It's everywhere. Darnell closed his eyes. Here we go. By morning, Marcus's video had 8 million views. Darnell woke to his phone vibrating continuously. Texts, calls, emails from reporters, activists, strangers offering support or criticism. Shanice sat on the edge of their bed, her face drawn with worry. They're showing it on every news channel. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Everyone has an opinion about what happened to my husband last night. I'm here. This time. Her voice broke. But Darnell, what about next time? What if it's not caught on video? What if your partner doesn't arrive in time? He had no answer. They both knew the statistics, the names, the families left behind. Maya appeared in the doorway, still in her butterfly pajamas. Daddy, why are you on TV? By afternoon, Riverside Shopping Plaza had become a gathering point. Not a protest exactly, but a demonstration of support. Community members held signs, Believe Badge 2847, and Patricia Henderson must be prosecuted. and false reports cost lives. Maria Garcia's store had a line of customers wrapping around the block, people deliberately supporting her business.
The police department held a press conference. Chief Rodriguez stood at the podium, Sergeant Wilson beside him, both in full dress uniform. Last night, Officer Darnell Matthews, a 12-year veteran of this force, was subjected to racial profiling and a false 911 report while responding to a call in plain clothes. Thanks to the professionalism of Officer Matthews, Officer Sarah Chen, and the bravery of witnesses who documented the truth, justice is being served. Patricia Henderson faces multiple charges, and we will prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law. Chief Rodriguez, a reporter called out. Some are saying this is an overreach, that Mrs. Henderson genuinely felt threatened. Mrs. Henderson refused to examine legitimate police credentials and filed a false report describing Officer Matthews as aggressive when video evidence shows he maintained professional distance and composure throughout. Rodriguez's voice was steel. False reports weaponize emergency services and put lives at risk. We will not tolerate it. Meanwhile, Patricia Henderson's life was collapsing in real time. Her social media history had been excavated by internet sleuths. Years of posts complaining about those people in her neighborhood, coded language about property values, shares of fear-mongering articles about crime. Screenshots spread across platforms, each one another nail in her reputation's coffin. The HOA she'd served held an emergency meeting and voted to remove her from the board. A statement followed. The board does not condone discriminatory behavior and has received numerous complaints about Mrs. Henderson's conduct toward minority residents. We are reviewing all previous complaints with fresh eyes. 3 former neighbors came forward with their own stories. A black family she'd called police on for a backyard barbecue. An Asian couple she'd accused of running an illegal business from their home. A Latino teenager she'd reported as suspicious for walking through the neighborhood with a backpack. Brian Henderson's law firm issued a terse statement. Brian Henderson has taken a voluntary leave of absence to address personal matters. His actions do not reflect the values of this firm. Translation: they'd cut him loose too. Darnell watched all of this from his living room, feeling like he was observing someone else's life. The department had given him 3 days of administrative leave, standard procedure after a traumatic incident. He was supposed to be resting. Instead, he was fielding calls from the NAACP, from community organizations, from activists wanting him to speak at events. "You don't have to do any of this," Shanice said, watching him scroll through requests. "I know, but Marcus put himself at risk to document what happened. Maria spoke up when it would have been easier to stay silent. If I don't use this platform, what does that say?" Sarah stopped by that afternoon, bringing takeout and her no-nonsense presence. The department's getting flooded with calls, half supporting us, half claiming we're persecuting an innocent woman. Of course they are, Darnell picked at his food. Truth doesn't matter to some people, only their narrative. You see, Patricia's lawyer gave a statement, claims she's receiving death threats, that her life is ruined over a misunderstanding. Her life is ruined because she chose to weaponize the police against a black man. I'm supposed to feel sorry for her facing consequences? No, but Sarah paused. You know how this goes. She'll become a martyr to some people, the poor white woman persecuted by political correctness. Marcus texted, "Officer Matthews, I've been contacted by news shows wanting interviews. Should I do them?" Darnell called him. "Marcus, that's your decision. But be prepared. Some people are going to try to tear you down. They'll say you edited the video, that you're chasing clout, whatever fits their narrative." "I know. But if I don't speak up, they control the story, right?" "Right." Darnell felt a surge of respect for the teenager.
You need anything, media training, legal advice, you call me. By evening, the story had spawned 1,000 think pieces. Legal analysts debated whether the charges would stick. Social commentators argued about Karen culture and privilege. Politicians issued careful statements about police accountability and false reports. And somewhere in holding, awaiting bail hearing, Patricia Henderson was learning that the system she'd tried to weaponize had teeth after all. The question now was whether those teeth would hold. 3 months later, Darnell stood in a community-centered gymnasium converted into a classroom. 20 teenagers sat in folding chairs, phones in hand, listening as Marcus demonstrated proper recording techniques. "Keep the camera steady," Marcus explained. "Get a wide shot first, then details. Capture faces, badge numbers, everything. And never stop recording until the situation is completely over." Patricia Henderson had pleaded guilty 2 weeks ago. Her lawyer had negotiated probation, 300 hours of community service in diverse neighborhoods, mandatory anti-bias education, and a permanent record. The courtroom statement had been hollow, scripted. Apologies for misunderstanding that never acknowledged the racism driving her actions. Darnell hadn't attended the sentencing. He was done giving Patricia Henderson his energy. Sarah walked over, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Program's going well. 6 more community centers want to host it. Maria's got 12 service workers ready to share their stories. They formed a whole advocacy network. She's becoming a leader. And Jessica Wu? Volunteers every Saturday. She's doing the work." Darnell paused. Brian Henderson filed for divorce. Hasn't seen Patricia since the arrest. Coward to the end.
They watched Marcus work with the teenagers, his confidence transformed. He'd been accepted to USC Film School with a full scholarship. His application essay had been about the power of documentation to achieve justice. "You okay?" Sarah asked quietly. Darnell considered. The nightmares had mostly stopped. The hypervigilance when he saw white women in parking lots remained. But he was here, teaching young people to protect themselves, turning his trauma into purpose. "Getting there," he said. A teenage girl raised her hand. "Officer Matthews, what if we record something but nobody believes us?" Darnell met her eyes. "Then you find people who will. You find your Sarah Chen, your Marcus Thompson, your Maria Garcia. The system doesn't automatically protect us. We have to choose to protect each other. That's the lesson." Later, walking to his patrol car with Sarah, Darnell felt the weight of his badge differently. Not lighter, never lighter, but balanced now by the knowledge that justice required people choosing to act justly, consistently, courageously. His phone buzzed. A text from Shanice. "Dinner's ready when you are. Kids miss you." "Let's go home," Darnell said to Sarah. She nodded. "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow we do it again." The work continued. It always would. But tonight, Darnell Matthews went home to his family, scarred but not defeated, carrying forward both the weight and wisdom of survival. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.